Hello and welcome to our webinar, which will look today at how financial institutions can harness modern data platforms for data integration, advanced investment analytics, visualization, and reporting. My name is Mark McCord. I'm the editor of Data Management Insight here at A-Team Group, and I'll be moderating this webinar today. But before we get started, I'd like to just share some events that we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. You can see them at the bottom of your page. And there you'll see you can register to attend Data Management Summit New York City, our showcase DMI event in the US. And that will take place next week on September 18th. Also, just before that, on September the 11th, we have our webinar, Best Approaches for Trade and Transaction Reporting. And just between the two of those, we have another webinar, Enhancing Trader Efficiency with Interoperability. Excuse me, it's a bit of a mouthful. Innovative solutions for automated and streamlined trader desktop and workflows. Like I said, that's on September 17th. Today's webinar will focus on modern data platforms, and we have a panel of guest speakers to go to discuss that. And I'll let them introduce themselves in a moment. But first, let me introduce you all to Slido, which you'll see on your screen. It's the audience participation app that we'll be using today. You'll see two panels during the webinar. One is for the audience polls, of which we'll be running 3 today, and I'll let you know when they're coming up. And do please take part in those so that we can gauge your interest in the topic that we're talking about today. There will also be a panel for you for your pressing questions, and you can type those in whenever you like. We'll take a break during proceedings to answer as many of those as we can. Right, let's go to our speakers. And Christina, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your interest in this topic.
Hello, everyone. Also, a warm welcome from my side. My name is Christina Schack. I'm working for Bank Vontobel in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm leading the data solutions team here at the bank. So my team really provides, as the name says, the underlying data services and solutions for the whole entire bank and for different business units. We help teams to visualize and to implement their data analytics solutions in various fields. And yes, of course, as you hear from the name, the data platform, having a powerful data platform based on modern technologies with sufficient capabilities and features is key for my team and also for the success of the bank and having successful services up and running.
Excellent. Thank you, Christina. And Ricky Glasgow, can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ricky Glasgow. I am the Global Head of Data Governance for Asset Servicing and COO at Northern Trust. So my team look after all of the policies and the procedures and the standards that are handed down, and we work with the Central Enterprise of Data Analytics Office to put those in place. My real interest is really around the governance and how governance can be incorporated into those modern data platforms. So, and I've also been in the financial services sector for over 20 or so years. So I've got a bit of experience in buy side, sell side, and working with vendors.
Thank you, Ricky. We also have Mick Hittersdorf with us. Mick, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Mick Hittersdorf, Senior Cloud Architect at OneTick. OneTick is a vendor of tick analytics solutions, as well as a provider of market data globally. I've been with OneTick not quite a year, where I lead the architecture strategy and also work very closely with our flagship customers to help them modernize their data platforms, much of which involves moving their data platforms to the cloud and enhancing their data platforms with some of the capabilities that we'll talk about today.
Great stuff. Thank you, Mick. And finally, Dave Byrne, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Dave Byrne. I work for the London Stock Exchange Group. I am group head of data platforms within the data and analytics division. Before that, I was at JP Morgan. I held a chief data officer role there in private markets and built data platforms for them there. And then before that, I worked at Goldman Sachs, working in both sell side and buy side trading.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dave. Before we start our discussion, I'm going to launch an audience poll. And the first question that we're asking is what impediments have held back your organization's MDP implementation plans, if there are any? And we've got a multiple choice answers there. So please start voting as we get on with our discussion. So let's start with you, Dave. What are the broad benefits of a modern data platform, and what does success look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think having investment in a modern data platform for any large enterprise, especially in financial services, it's the lifeblood of a lot of the business and commercial outcomes that enterprises are trying to achieve. And at LSEG specifically, data is a huge business for us, and having a modern data platform is what allows us to meet our customer needs and deliver sort of the capabilities and quality of service that our customers demand. And yeah, I mean, as an engineer, I think I can't think of a more critical area of investment, both for LSEG and for other companies that I've been at, other large banks. Particularly I think with AI being on the forefront of everyone's mind, your AI investments are only as good as the data that you put into it. And so having a modern, making an investment without AI, without also making an investment in modern data platforms is, there's no point. You have to do them together.
Gotcha. Ricky, is that how you see things at Northern Trust?
Yeah, definitely. It's really about what's the next evolution. Okay, we were sitting on disparate platforms, and this is not specific to Northern Trust, but disparate platforms, all trying to do the same thing. And economies of scale ensure that you have to collapse down some of that legacy architecture and really kind of use your data in that one platform that you use across the organization. It also gives you a number of other benefits around agility and scalability. It helps you with the data democratization within your organization, but also, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more, is about the improved data quality and governance. So I definitely see that those modern data platforms really actually allow us to get our hands around that data in a more streamlined and cost-efficient way, because the markets are only getting more complex. We're requiring people to create alpha, and time to market is crucial for that. So that's just my additional comments.
Okay. And Mick, what do you see as the broad benefits of a modern data platform?
Yes. So before I answer that question, I thought I might just step back, and some of the other speakers have touched on this already. But as I was preparing for this webinar, I thought the audience might want to know what distinguishes a modern data platform from a traditional, data platform, right? And sort of some of those like key pillars that I think are the essential elements of a data platform. One. No surprises here. It's cloud native or cloud first, typically. That's what I see our clients doing en masse, is moving to the data platforms to the cloud. Why? To take advantage of the full elastic capabilities, both of storage and compute. Two, a very recent, but unless you're kind of in the data world, maybe you're not aware of what's happening, but the kind of stampede towards open data formats. Customers, clients, companies don't want to lock up their data in proprietary data formats. It used to be that you would be a Oracle customer or a SQL Server customer or something like that, or maybe had a big data warehouse from one of these big data warehouse vendors. All your data was locked up inside. That's changing and has been changing since the introduction of Parquet, and that's really accelerated now with the adoption of Iceberg. So another key element is your data is in a object storage in the cloud in an open data format. The benefits of that, broad access to your tool of choice. Any tool that supports Parquet or Iceberg, and there are many of them, whether it be BI, analytics, data management, metadata. That's a huge benefit. And then I think it's already been touched on already. It's, governance has always been an emphasis, and data quality has, been an emphasis, but really data quality becomes a first-class citizen in the modern data platform, largely because it is serving all sorts of use cases, and in particular, AI and ML use cases require high-quality data. It's never been more true that, garbage in, garbage out. So you need to make sure that you can produce the high-quality data that ML and AI models need. And then lastly, it's making it super easy to access data through APIs, through programming languages of choice, open language, APIs such as REST, SQL, Python, really being able to provide kind of cater to your users and provide like a full menu of ways to access the data that makes it very easy to self-serve data. So I think those are the key elements of a modern data platform and some of the benefits.
Okay. And Christina, is that how you see things at your bank?
I think I can just agree with what my predecessor said, but maybe just to bring in one other aspect in also is that the use cases have changed a lot, and I guess that's something that we need to cater for, and modern platform can do so. If we really look how the use cases have changed over time, data in previous times have just been used for operational purpose, but now it's much more to get insights in various forms, and also AI is one of the tools in use for gaining insights, understanding better client needs or customer needs, try to see how you can optimize your processes and things like that. And therefore, people need to collaborate on platforms, collaborate on data. And that's the aspect that modern platforms bring in. It offers a space where people can collaborate, not just in a team, across teams, but even across companies. So these platforms, as Mick also said, they are in the cloud. So other cloud solutions can easily adapt to it. So you have now a much broader spectrum of data that is available for you and that you can easily connect. So there is a much easier way of integration of data sources, harmonizing it and bringing this together. And for me, that's one of the key aspects.
Brilliant. Okay, well, let's look at the results of our poll and see how they've come in. Looks like, I guess, predictably legacy systems, and that's probably just as well because it follows on to our next question. But Dave, would you say that it's the legacy systems that are improved upon with a modern data platform?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a career platform engineer, so consolidating and modernizing legacy systems has been what I've spent my career doing. I think there's inherent complexity to that. It's always harder to turn a system off than it is to build a new system. I think that is definitely an impediment here. But I think another point that maybe I would make, I think I'm not as all in on cloud for everything as maybe other people are. I think for small and medium-sized enterprises, cloud for everything makes a lot of sense. For the very large institutions, I think part of the reason they are having trouble turning off some of these legacy systems, not the only reason by far, but one of the reasons is because they are having trouble taking these on-prem data center legacy systems and moving them to cloud in a way that makes sense from a cost and from a cost perspective, from a capabilities perspective. And I think a lot of these large financial institutions is that there is actually a value proposition for certain workloads to stay on-prem. And, I think the overall shift of more and more workflows towards cloud is going to continue to happen. But I don't think it's going to be a situation where, especially for the large institutions, everything ends up on cloud. I think there are use cases that are just better when you have control over your own data center. And I think that is one of many challenges and things that enterprises are starting to learn as they try and modernize these legacy systems.
Gotcha. Okay. Mick, are you surprised by those results?
No, in fact, it lines up with how I spend most of my time. So as an architect focusing on, cloud migration and modernization, I spend most of my time on working with customers and improving our products to make them more cloud friendly, and then helping customers, design solutions, to move their systems to the cloud, which is typically part of a modernization effort where they have some sort of on-prem system. It might be our product running on-prem, or it might be something that has been assembled over many years on-prem. They want to move it to the cloud for various reasons. Sometimes it's cost drivers. Maybe they don't have the staff. They don't have the skills. In-house. They want a fully managed service, which is something also we offer, right? And other vendors do too. So there are a lot of drivers that are moving companies to the cloud. And then the second one, data quality, is very interesting. That's the other thing that I spent a lot of time on. We have invested a lot in data quality, and we're actually developing a new data quality service to improve on the existing data quality capabilities of our product, because I'm hearing more and more from customers how making data quality very visible and transparent, even and measurable using metrics, is essential for building trust in the data. And having trustworthy data is essential. If users don't trust the data, they won't use it. And it's even more important when you're feeding this data to models, whether it be ML models or AI LLMs. So I thought it aligned very well on those top two things with what I spend my day doing.
Gotcha. Right. Yeah, Ricky, any surprises for you there in those results?
No, not at all. I'm definitely not surprised that number one being legacy platforms, and I think it's interesting because I think it was Mick said it at the start that we build these new schemes and these new architectures and new platforms, but we often forget about the legacy that sits behind them. And I think it's really quite key that in order to really have that holistic that platform that we all strive for, is in order to collapse down the legacy architecture, because it comes with a number of efficiencies, right? One of those is cost savings, because you're not maintaining various platforms doing the same thing. The second is you kind of focus in on your regulatory requirements as well, because you're pushing all of your data through one platform where you can quite easily react to regulation. And then the other thing is there is going to be a cost of change, okay? But however, it's trying to ensure that everyone understands what that cost of change is, but the benefits that come out of that cost of change as well. So you have to kind of, fund the migration, because in order to keep all of those platforms running is just basically continue the pain, right?
Yeah. Christina, I mean, we look at the legacy systems as being one of the sorts of aspects that a modern data platform improves upon, but are there other things that it improves upon as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's exactly the collaboration model. And I think that's exactly the part why it takes so long to migrate, and that it's not done easily. So you can't just delegate it to one team and say, now build the modern data platform. It's really the collaboration aspect. So modern platforms are designed for collaboration, but it means that the way of how we work together and how people work will change, and that requires the effort of all teams, and therefore it's a longer journey to do so. And of course, modern technologies, different ways of working also require some upskilling of people and also changing of things, and change processes in general, transformational processes take long. We know that, and it's really then the right approach. So having that in mind right from the beginning, it's not just a technology change, it's really a cultural change of how we do things. And if you cater for this right from the beginning, so doing this transformation as a team sport, as a team effort across teams, and also plan accordingly, that you upskill people, that you change things over time, I think that's then then you can see some progress there.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, before we start looking at the specific benefits of particular aspects that we want to talk about here, let's have another poll question and to the audience. And so how would you describe your organization's utilization of modern data platform capabilities? Again, we have multiple choice answers here. and we'll look at your responses after we've had our looked at the just what benefits are accrued from a modern data platform within specifically when it comes to data integration. And I wonder, Mick, if you could address that first.
Yeah, so I think I touched on this in my introduction when I talked about the pillars of a modern data platform. Open data formats, I think, is the kind of essential and distinguishing feature of a modern data platform that that really enables and maximizes data integration. Modern data formats, open data formats such as Parquet and Iceberg are self-describing, and more importantly, those formats have been adopted by all of the hyperscalers in their tools. So you can use BigQuery, Athena, also by Snowflake, Databricks, as well as the open source community, Pandas, etc. What that gives you is a sort of a whole array of choices to access the data, and then the data formats themselves are self-describing, and combine that with data catalogs such as the Iceberg REST catalog. That goes a long way towards making data more discoverable. You can tag and define data in your data dictionaries, and then all of these tools can share that metadata, which goes a long way towards creating a common sort of semantic layer, which is one of the ways that end users are able to understand and use and derive value from the data.
Gotcha. Yeah, Christina, where do you see the integration piece benefiting from modern data platforms?
Yeah, I think Mick mentioned them also the most important aspects for me. One is really this connectivity, which becomes much easier. And what we also see is that the big providers now really work together in making data connectivity much easier and faster, and so that you don't have to develop it by yourself, so it comes out of the box. So I think that's from the integration aspect something that I really see the big benefit. It's so the technology integration is much faster. But on the other hand, on the user side, I also see benefits because the technology stack is really developing fast and it becomes much easier to develop things. So you don't really have to code anymore. It's more low code or zero code where you can build your data pipelines, your data use cases, and things like that. So the collaboration aspect, and also for people who don't have this technical background, is better now to use these platforms and getting insights out of data. But then also on the output side, and I think you don't build the platform just for collecting all the data. Very often it's the use case as such. So on the analytics side, you also see the integration with all the analytics tools and functions there. So there are either inbuilt functions, or at least you can then connect it to other visualization tools so that you really have the full end-to-end integration. One other aspect is when you integrate in total end-to-end is also that the governance aspect comes in. So you have the complete oversight. One aspect for us was, for example, also to have a consistent data access in place. Because if data are siloed in different systems, you can't really ensure that people see the same data on each platform. But if you have everything on one platform using the same technology, this consistency in data access and what you see is much better. I would say these are for me the main aspects.
Okay, and Dave, is there something you agree with there? The ease of use and distribution benefits from the integration you can into an MDP.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with all of the previous points. At LSEG, our goal is to, when we're providing data products to our clients, let's meet them where they want, in the venue where they want to consume the data, in the format they want to consume it. And I think the trends we're seeing are exactly what some of the ones Mick mentioned. We're seeing tremendous interest in open table formats like Iceberg and Delta Parquet. We're seeing tremendous interest in being able to provide a semantic model and a data catalog alongside it. So I think those are two huge trends that we're seeing. Both in terms of the capabilities that our customers are asking for, and also in terms of capabilities that are useful for our own internal data pipeline, data processing work. I think one that maybe I haven't heard mentioned yet is, or mentioned, on the periphery maybe a little bit, is data lineage. And so particularly within, highly regulated financial services businesses, there's increasing regulation around being able to articulate where your critical data dependencies are and where the data comes from. And so, at a company like LSEG, where the data we're distributing to clients comes from hundreds of thousands of different sources, having the technology capabilities to be able to explain to clients where data originated from, what the provenance of it is, when there's a data quality concern, what it impacts and what it doesn't impact, particularly in a highly regulated environment. I think that's a key capability.
Excellent. Thank you, Dave. So let's have a look at the results from our audience poll. And moderate. There's a moderate implementation. Ricky, is that would that be expected, considering it's it's a relatively new innovation?
Yeah, totally. I think if you ask this question in 2 or 3 years' time, I suspect it would be very different. I think you're right. It's when it comes to the MDB capabilities, we're kind of dipping our toes in that technology and the advantages of that single unified platform. We're not. It will give us benefits, but we're not really sure what those benefits are. And those benefits are on like a deck, as it were, that you talk to your senior management about. But I think once you get more mature, capabilities and also opportunities within the various business lines that are using the single unified platform, and then they're removing themselves from using the legacy architecture. I think it will become more and more mature as we go across the journey.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Well, Ricky, staying with you, with these, there are obvious improved capabilities for investment analytics, and I guess that's linked in a way, some ways, to data visualization. I mean, where do you see those aspects benefiting most?
So it's really interesting, because I find there's a few areas, okay, because it is going to allow us to provide sharper insights and faster decision making. Okay, I think again we keep coming across the theme of improved data quality, and I think Christina had mentioned something about data quality previously. I think we've all mentioned something about data quality, and that's quite key, right? Because ultimately with these silos, we're trying to fix data in very different places, okay, whereas if you've got this single unified platform, you're actually fixing it once, and it's also being used inside the organization for many other areas. So if you look at faster, more reliable analytics, you're going to get that if you get the right platform. You then start looking at the regulatory landscape and the compliance efficiencies off the back of that, where if anything, regulation is going to get more and more demanding of us, right? So if you're trying to ensure that your companies or financial institutions regulatory or compliance is all in line, then it makes sense to do it in one platform, rather than having to say, oh, what about that other platform that's feeding X, Y, and Z business? And also it gives you improved client and investor reporting. Okay, again, data quality is not only used inside the organization, but it's used outside of the organization when reporting to regulators, compliance, and external customers.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Dave, I mean, do you see that as well with analytics and the improved analytics and also the visualization that it's benefiting all parts of the organization?
Yeah, and I think visualization is maybe where I see AI is really changing the way we're doing things. Users' expectation from a UX, from a user journey experience perspective, expectations are changing a lot based on AI, right? Or are expecting a natural language interface, are not expecting really complicated UIs in the same way they were before. And as it applies to things like charting and data visualization, I think that changes data access patterns in a way where the underlying, technology capabilities need to be different, right? The way maybe a static dashboard is hitting backend data services is very different than the way that an LLM is going to hit backend services, and the cost and performance implications of that require a lot of different choices. And coming back to the poll results, where most people said they were medium and only a small percentage said they were advanced, I actually think it's going to be maybe the same split in 4 or 5 years, because I think this technology is advancing so rapidly that what is advanced today is not going to be the same thing that is advanced in 4 or 5 years. And so I think we will still see a similar sense where people are still saying, 6% are advanced in 4 or 5 years, because as we learn more about the consumption patterns that make sense with this new technology, it's going to require, sort of further technology pivots. And so I think anybody building a modern data platform today from an architecture perspective needs to keep that in mind, right? As new advances come out, like the big one now is model context protocol. And, I think you have to be careful not leaning into things like going all in on MCP servers and, being careful and flexible with your architecture, because MCP servers are the big thing today. Are they going to be the big thing in 4 years? I think anybody's guess is as good as another. Yeah. And so I would expect that split between moderate and advanced adoption to be almost the same.
Yeah, I guess today's modern data platform is tomorrow's old data platform, right? So it's always the definition of a modern data platform is going to change over time.
Yeah, the goalposts are constantly moving.
Oh, sorry, go on, Nick.
Yeah, the goalposts are constantly moving, right? So I think that's a very good point that Dave made.
Yeah. Mick, while you're there, I mean, how do you see analytics and also visualization improving within the what we have as a modern data platform today?
Yeah, interesting. I was thinking about that as I was listening to some of the other speakers answer that question, and something I didn't touch on when I kind of gave my definition of a modern data platform, but I think it's very, very important, shouldn't be overlooked, is the unification of batch and streaming. So more and more enterprises, especially in capital markets, but even outside capital markets, whether it be firms that are collecting, high frequency sensor data, for machines or defense, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of use cases that benefit from, in some cases, have prerequisites to have access to streaming data. So, and I'm seeing this more and more amongst our own client base at OneTick, where rather than dashboards, being either static or updating every few minutes, especially in capital markets. The new generation of dashboards that are enabled by these modern data platforms are able to consume streaming data and derive intelligence and insights from that streaming data without having a whole separate streaming architecture. So I think truly streaming dashboards, those have been sort of on the leading edge, or in some cases considered too advanced, and I think in a lot of cases, those are going to be the differentiators. And my experience is that users love them, especially if users are traders, portfolio managers, et cetera. To have a truly streamed dashboard that can keep up with spikes in volatility, et cetera, is something that a modern data platform architected correctly can support that a legacy platform cannot.
Right, yeah, excellent. And Christina, I mean, how do you see the development of data visualization within an MDP?
I think there are certain aspects have been already mentioned, so I try to bring some new topics in. So I see now things merging together. So one, of course, you try to get the insights out of data, but also you use the visualization for getting informed which data exists. So the term data marketplace is very important. So it's important that you see that. And with that, also the aspect which was mentioned, data lineage. And this again brings data trust. If you don't know where data is coming from, then you don't trust the data. So it's very important that we have this visualization, not just purely on data for certain use cases, but in general, to see the whole data estate, to visualize it, to visualize also the lineage, the data flow, the data quality, the source of things, and on all of these aspects, I think that's also one part for me of visualization. And of course, it goes then hand in hand. So what people would like to do is going on a marketplace and shop for data, right? Going there, figuring out which data exist, getting some insights from the data, or learning more about the data so that they can judge whether the data set is the right one for the use case. And then, of course, starting using the data and visualize it. And ideally, already with some advanced technologies and some AI features that help them to really get to the point that they want to achieve.
Right, yeah. There's Ricky, you mentioned earlier that the data is going to be used externally for reporting purposes. I mean, can you give us a little bit more insight into your thoughts about how reporting's improved through an MDP?
Yeah, sure. So, and again, I think we the common thing we're talking about is, right, we're sending a reporting out to our regulators, our customers and everything. If they're going through one single platform, which is the single source of truth, you can really avail the data quality issues, if there are any, within that one place, rather than trying to fix it in many disparate places, kind of like playing whack-a-mole to try and fix the data before it goes out to the external organizations. But then it also gives you, faster report generation. So you can create that report a lot faster than having to fix the data, then send the data out and check it before it goes out the door. Christina mentioned about self-service. Okay, that self-service part is quite critical, right? Because in the past, when you want to have a look at data that wants to be used in a report, you'd have to spin up a development team, a project team, etc., etc. But if you provide the self-service element of it, I can go and look at that data, then see how it is. Does it satisfy my requirements, and give me a quicker time to market based on the fact that it's a single source of truth. So that's really quite key when it comes to that data that's going to be used both internally and externally.
Okay, Dave. I mean, how do you see the reporting piece benefiting?
Yeah, sure. I think I agree with all the previous points. Maybe one point I would make on the back of Mick's point. I agree that I see reporting use cases going to more of a streaming type architecture in the future. I think it's not just about speed though, and particularly as you start getting faster and you get closer to near real-time reporting, the data consistency becomes an important part of it. Particularly in an area like risk management for hedges in a trading business, right? If I am, not to get too technical, but if I'm long, a position on one exchange and I'm short a position on another exchange, yes, I want the market data fast, but it's actually more important that it's consistent and correlated, and so that the hedge position is reflected accurately. And so I think data consistency is a thing that is a challenge in an area of innovation in modern data platforms. And we have traditional old school relational databases that do data consistency very well. A lot of the modern technologies have more eventual consistency semantics or weaker consistency guarantees, and particularly as we get faster and move more towards the streaming type architectures, data consistency becomes a big thing, particularly for reporting use cases.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Now, before we go on to our next panel question, I want to ask Christina a question that's come from the audience. While we've been focusing on sort of operational side of things, let's focus on where in an organization MDP most benefits. And an anonymous question member has asked, what are the benefits of an MDP to the front office in particular?
Well, I think I see also the availability of data in general is some aspect that that is relevant for all, also for front units. So we see it for the sales people in particular, but also for marketing teams who really want to see get some more information over the customers. And I think there was a good example where is the customer also has other contracts or other products within the same company. So having a platform where you get the ideal 360-degree view of your customer, for example, is one of the big use cases also for the front. So if you get all the information at one point and one hand, then of course this is of benefit. And here I think many people on the front say, yes, but I have my CRM system, so I have everything in there. And I guess that's very true for reference data and the normal operational data that you need for onboarding a client and things like that. But there are other aspects which then come also in. So where do you get the information of which marketing material a customer has got? Or is there any kind of other activity ongoing that would relate to that? Is there any other product development that I can offer, for example, to my customer? So I guess that getting also the insights from other areas or the financial aspects, so the profit calculations and things like that. So beside of the CRM system, for example, where you already have a lot of information about your client, getting this extra information, which gives you maybe also some better possibilities to interact with your client, could be one of the use cases that just comes to my mind. But I guess it's really getting more information than the one that you classically get via the client process or client management process.
Okay. Mick, can organizations achieve synergies by embedding all of these processes that we've talked about today into an MDP, or can they achieve equal benefits if deployed alone?
Equal benefits. I mean, there are benefits to be had from making investments in a modern data platform that can be derived without all the elements being in place from day one. I personally think that the most strategic commitment you can make is adopting and choosing. It's also very important, has a lot of implications, choosing your open data format, whether it be Parquet or Delta or Iceberg. And that has a multitude of benefits. It's really the foundational layer on which I think a modern data platform is built. And that enables, the open access from your tool of choice. You don't need to the tool you choose, the technology you choose to access the data and the data format itself aren't tightly coupled. So that gives you some flexibility. The fact that AWS, for example, has S3 table buckets, right? So they're going to provide capabilities in terms of metadata management and related capabilities. I think you can get started small and by using even open source tools or a particular vendor that provides capabilities for one line of business. Might be one tick for tick analytics for your traders or portfolio manager, and then maybe later it moves to compliance. But you don't need a big bang. I think it's important to choose your data format. I think that's super important. That's where your data is going to live. And then you can layer on these additional capabilities over time. You can do batch first, add streaming later. I think having the data format and then having some governance around that data in terms of data quality, I think is extremely important because again, I've seen it time and time again. You can have this fantastic technical platform, but it's very hard to regain trust once your users access bad data and realize the data is not trustworthy, right? Mm-hmm. So I would very much encourage those who are building a platform to make data quality and to talk to their users about what data is quality is in terms of how they define it, what's good enough, how do they measure data quality, and make sure that you are deliberately addressing that as part of your data platform strategy. So that's where I would start, and then I would layer on these other capabilities over time.
Okay, and Dave, would you go for that sort of iterative implementation, or would you look for the synergies between a full scale sort of implementation?
Yeah, I think look, you need to be able to deliver incrementally for sure. That's the key to any big enterprise multi-year project, which most modern data platforms are going to be, even at a smaller, medium-sized firm. I think the main benefits you're going to get from consolidation is consistent customer experience, regardless of whether those customers are internal or external. You're going to have a much more consistent experience, and deduplication of investment. If you're isolated, if you have a bunch of isolated deployments, you're going to end up building the same capabilities over and over for each of them. And so there's some efficiency gains there. But having said that, different technologies are good for different use cases as well. So I think you have to have maybe some people would describe that as maybe a data mesh architecture, but you have to make sure that you're choosing the right technology for the workload as well, and then have these ways of loosely coupling these technologies together in a coherent way. And I think Mick's point about open table formats being a good part of the puzzle there, I think that's an important one. I think I agree with all the points about quality, particularly in a world where more and more workloads are going to go to AI. I think accuracy, data quality of the underlying data is one thing, but then accuracy of the AI models is another thing. And I'm maybe not as bullish as other people that accuracy is going to improve as fast as people think it will. I think it will get better over time, but I think accuracy is going to continue to be a big concern, particularly for the LLM use cases.
Gotcha. Thank you, Dave. Let's have our final poll, our audience poll. And this one, having discussed the benefits, let's see what benefits you're seeing. So there we are. We have a multiple choice of answers to the question, what benefits is your organization seeing from MDP implementation? Before we look at those results, I'd like to ask Christina, we've seen earlier that the audience says its pain points are the legacy systems, but what do you see the other challenges to implementing MDP for the use cases listed above?
I would like to take the point up when it comes to really where to start first, and I think this is where people struggle, because you need to have the full picture in mind when you start. I think we talked a lot about the right architecture, the right tool selection, and things like that. So, and that's I think that's a bit the challenge when you start that journey, or when you're on the journey. You need to draw already the big picture without knowing each of the details, and then you start use case by use case to implement that. So for me, that's always the question, how to balance that. How you can go top down, but I guess that's not the right approach. Then you will develop 5 years in a box and then come out with something which might not need preserve the people's needs. But on the other hand, you need to be also bring tangible results so that people see things, can learn, and can help to support and develop further. So I feel that this is also very relevant. So this type of balance is quite challenging to find the right balance there. So where do you start to think big of selecting the right architecture at that, and then starting use case by use case? However, modern platforms really have also the aim to be modular, and I think that's important to think that way. What are the modules that you have, and how you will build things? So I think Dave mentioned also the data mesh architecture, so you can identify the data domains or business domains where you see most benefits, starting from that, for example, and having some showcases there. But also when it comes to technology, I feel it's important to really have a good selection of which tools you want to have, and then also maybe plan to exchange tools over time. And that again brings me back that you have to have a kind of data capability map in your mind. What are the functions that you want to have, and which tools do you want to use for this? And then maybe you can also exchange over time. So what we, for example, also saw is when it comes to data sources, right? shall you wait for the right data source to start with? Maybe you start with something, working on that, and then improve the data sources over time and improve quality over time. So I feel this is also something which needs some thoughts and some good engineers to do this in a proper manner. This cutting the whole big chunk into digestible pieces so that you really can start working on it and make progress.
Right. And Ricky, where do you see challenges?
Yeah, I definitely feel definitely what Christina said is relevant. I think also as well there's that cultural change, okay, which is that, you know, yet again we're trying to tell our audience something new that we want to try and implement and we want to push on the agenda, but you know, so that there's that culture change, but there's also the senior management buy-in as well up to the board level around the strategy of where the organization's going from a single data platform perspective, because ultimately they're the ones that are writing the checks to invest in the technology and the data sources, etc., etc. So I definitely feel there is a culture element in everything we do, including MDPs, because ultimately it's about bringing people along for the journey and explaining to them the business benefits of what we're trying to deploy in an organization.
Gotcha. Okay, let's look at the poll results and see if there are any surprises there. Well, the the first point we talked about, data integration accessibility. Mick, do you see any sort of surprises in those results?
No, I don't. I'm actually very pleased to see data integration accessibility at the top. Accessibility in particular is something that I hear users value tremendously, especially in organizations that might traditionally have required a ticket or a project team. I think Ricky mentioned this to, be put in place to provide access to data or to build a dashboard for me. That's another project. I think users in particular, if you really want them to get on board with your data platform modernization project, focus on making, data easy to access, right? Simple access to clean data, right? That's kind of the mantra that I use. And I think the results here kind of underscore how important that is.
Yeah, get it right from the start.
Yeah.
We've got time for one more question, I think. So, and we like to finish these things with a nice, an across the board look at the views of the panel on what one piece of advice would you offer to someone thinking of deploying the listed use cases into an MDP? Let's start with you, Dave. Sorry.
Yeah, I would say, maybe the number one thing I would focus on the outset is make sure that your functional requirements are going to evolve over time, but make sure that you understand sort of the coarse-grained non-functional requirements upfront. Understand, roughly within an order of magnitude how much data you're talking about. Understand roughly within an order of magnitude sort of what your latency and throughput requirements are. Because if you make assumptions about those things that turn out to be incorrect, the architecture might need to dramatically change to account for those new requirements. And so, I think there's always a lot of focus on the functional requirements, rightly so. But as those continue to evolve, the thing that will really kill you is if you got assumptions about the non-functional requirements, fundamentally wrong at the outset. That's a difficult problem to recover from incrementally. And so, making sure the non-functional requirements sort of treated as a first class consideration as you sort of embark.
Okay. Ricky, what would be the one piece of advice you would offer?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously technology is an important part of any MDP. Okay. I think don't be led by only implementing that technology, but understand what the business outcomes you want to achieve. And then decide on the technology after that, because it's quite complicated and you don't want to go down the road of implementing a technical solution, then you find it doesn't actually satisfy the requirements of the whole organization. So it really is about the other way around, which is let's collect what we're trying to solve. Let's try and understand what we're trying to fix, as it were, and let the technology, let that help you decide on what the technology is that you use.
Great, thank you. Mick, your one piece of advice.
Yeah, we talked about the impediments to adoption. People don't like to change. Change is hard. So I always look for quick wins, and I also look for ways to architect a modern data platform that minimizes those hurdles. For example, maybe the right place to start is with a fully hosted, cloud-based, data platform where you're basically kind of renting, access to data in the platform and compute and things like that. That's a quick way to get maybe a portfolio manager or a trader on board or a quant, to start seeing some of the benefits of a modern data platform that's fully hosted and managed by someone else. And then maybe they see that benefit and they're willing to write that check to start building, their own capabilities, in their own cloud account, or maybe a hybrid, solution with partly on-prem. So I try to look for quick wins and also try to design an architecture and a migration strategy that minimizes the upfront investment, minimizes the amount of change that's required of people. People don't like to change. I think it's important to recognize that. So how can we really cater to their choice of tools, choice of technologies, workflows, et cetera, while preserving the benefits, of a modern data platform, such that strategy can eventually grow to support, multiple use cases, multiple departments, across, the enterprise.
Yeah. And Christina, let's give the final word to you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree to what my colleague speaker said. What I would also like to add is really that rethink how you run your processes and on the data side, because the modern technology platform offers so much new capabilities and functionalities, and you want to use this new function and technology. So be open for that and rethink whether you can also optimize your processes and the collaboration model that you have in place. So things like self-service instead of managed services, things like really providing real-time data and all of these type of things. I think that's worth thinking about before starting, because otherwise you just duplicate what you have in your current setup in the cloud, and that doesn't bring any benefit.
Right. Thank you, Christine. And actually, thank you, everyone. We will end the webinar there. Before I say goodbye to our panelists, I'd like to remind you of our upcoming events. We've got the Data Management Summit New York City. That's on September 18th. Our Best Approaches for Trade and Transaction Reporting webinar on September the 11th. And our webinar with the long title, Enhancing Trader Efficiency with Interoperability, Innovative Solutions for Automated and Streamlined Trader Desktop and Workflows. That's on September 17th. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Dave. And thank you, Mick, for a fascinating webinar. And thank you all for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.